Greetings guys, gals, and non-binary pals, and welcome back to the adventuring things. Today is going to be a bit of a divergence from the book and art related content that I've been posting on this channel, and more in the mental health side of it. So, just quick disclaimer, I am not a mental health professional. I don't have that training. Anything that I'm saying in this video, or really any time that I'm talking about mental health on this channel or any platform really, is taken from my own experience. So, on the off chance that any kind of personal experience being relayed might help someone else, that's the purpose of this. So, for me, right, I deal with a lot of anxiety, specifically a lot of medical anxiety. So, the last year has been a time, and for a lot of people who are already familiar with the whole thing, this might not be useful at all. I don't know. But I know for me, right, there's times that it gets to a point where I can't function and have to kind of either stop what I'm doing and do something else entirely, or take a detour for a bit and then come back to whatever it is. That in and of itself doesn't seem to be a unique trait or what have you, but some of the triggers for that, being like the medical and the whatever else, might be, I don't know. Again, personal experience. But in dealing with that, especially over the last year, I was talking to a therapist for a while. I've been watching some content that, because there are therapists on YouTube who put out like a general PSA sort of thing sometimes, and I'll link some mental health resources in the description for anyone who might be needing them. But one of the things that has kind of been a consistent thing that I've been aware of, at least, I mean, I know it's been happening like outside of the last year or so, but being aware of it, and basically if you're aware of it, then you have more potential to deal with it, if that makes sense. But one of the main things that I've been aware of needing to deal with on that front has been giving myself permission to not do everything that I think that I should be able to do. Which sounds like it's a cop-out, but what I mean by that is essentially you think that you should be able to do 10 things. Sometimes all you can do is get out of bed, or get out of bed and take a shower. Ideally, you can eat something, have some water, because those are things that are needed to survive. And on that note, a word from our sponsors. Water. But there's times that you think that you should be able to do this whole compendium of things, and you might not have the mental or physical energy to do even half of that. And I don't know if it ties to the anxiety or if it ties to something else, but I know how my system feels in the middle of dealing with an anxiety situation or a panic situation, and it's very draining, especially in the immediate aftermath when you're out of whatever the fight, flight, or freeze response is being generated from. And I tend to get really jittery and then crash. Or almost crash. And especially when I'm in the middle of it, but in that kind of like jitter sort of stage, either leading up to a situation that I know will cause that response, or coming out of it, there's times that I cannot concentrate enough to do something. That's essentially what's happening right now, which is why I'm making this as a video topic instead of something else, because I can't concentrate on any of the other ideas or pre-filmed footage in order to edit it. So, which brings me to my other point. In a lot of areas right now, things are starting to open up. And for a lot of areas, people have access to the vaccines. There's still some areas that don't. There's still some demographics that don't. According to some folks that I know in Ireland, it's still restricted to the 80 and up for who can get the vaccines. In the States, most areas have extended it to, I think, 16 and up. So I'm going to include links to places, sites, there we go. Links to sites that you can go to check stuff for that if you haven't been able to get a COVID vaccine as yet. So that'll be down there too. But we've been through a year of quarantine and, in a lot of areas, mandatory masks and enforced isolation and distancing and all that. Now, there is yeah, it's this is kind of what I mean, right? It's hard to talk about even because it's so much of a thing. And just talking about the potentiality of going outside without a mask on is like, I can feel it starting. Not to mention going out somewhere for food or whatever with people. So I know that for me personally, it's going to take a while before I'm comfortable with it. And with everything that has happened and with as bad as it has been, I know that that is a limitation that I have to deal with, right? Which, on the flip side, knowing that that is a thing for me, it's forced me to take it more seriously than some other people in the community. So, not necessarily a bad thing per se, but just like the fight, flight, or freeze response is technically an evolutionarily good thing because it has that as a kind of inbuilt defense mechanism in certain situations. When it manifests as an anxiety situation, when it manifests in any number of situations, it can be very debilitating. Now, going back to what I said a little bit ago, it's important to give yourself permission to perhaps not do everything that you think that you should be able to do. Because sometimes the anxiety, at least in my case, can't speak for anyone else, I'm just gonna say that, but at least in my case, there's times that the anxiety is so bad that all I can manage is to plan to do something, or to run out real quick, run into a store, get like one or two things, and then go home, and that's it. That's it for the day. And I'm gonna need to leave the house in a couple hours to go do some stuff and things, and I'm already kind of but when that starts up, I know that playing certain music helps. Sometimes listening to an audiobook helps, especially if my eyes are going kind of, because that way my brain can switch and focus on something else, because if someone's speaking, then it's something that I can latch on to, and I don't have to visually try and track the words on the page when my eyes are vibrating, because that's a thing that happens, and stuff like that. Yeah, basically the whole point of this, right, was to basically just say we're in the middle of, for a lot of areas, coming out of quarantine, and there's people who seem to think that because there are vaccines and stuff, that you don't need to wear a mask anymore, or that it's okay to be in large groups of people, especially for that, without a mask on. And it's okay to acknowledge that you have limits. And, well, it's good to kind of test your limits when you're in a situation that is safe and you feel secure and you can do that. It's also important to acknowledge the ones that you have, because especially with coming out of quarantine and stuff, there's going to be a lot of people, probably, also part of why I'm making this, but there's probably going to be quite a few people who might not have had certain triggers, shall we say, before all of this, that do now. So, basically, what I'm trying to say here is give yourself a break. There's a lot of times that it feels like I'm not doing enough, or I'm not able enough to do something. And sometimes you've just got to give yourself a break, acknowledge that those limitations exist, and it's kind of in process, whatever the thing is that you're working on. And that sometimes you need to just step away from a project or a situation or certain people, at least for a while, because it's not so great for you in whatever that situation is right then. So just take care of yourselves, alright? Give yourself a break when you need it. Acknowledge that there are going to be limitations that you need to work within, work around sometimes, and go from there. And honestly, I'm talking to myself as much as anyone else who's watching this, to be perfectly honest, because anyone who's even a passing acquaintance of mine is probably well aware of the tendency to overload and obsess about certain things. And generally, when that happens, it helps to have an outside source tell me, at least, that it's okay to just let it go, at least for a while. Like, stay away from caffeine, because, you know, that amps up anxiety stuff. Remember to drink water, because water. Eat something, even if it's just like a couple of crackers, sometimes that helps to calm stuff down a little bit. I know not everyone has access to it, but if you have a space that's like outside somewhere, especially if there's a garden space that is, you know, that is accessible for you, in addition to the music and just kind of chill audio, going outside and working with the plants is another thing that helps in my experience. So that might be something to check out too. So, and I mean, coming to the end of this recording sesh, it feels very disjointed, but hopefully editing Rin can turn all of this into some kind of cohesive whole that makes some kind of sense. So, there's that. I hope y'all are doing alright. Again, links to mental health support sites and various other things are going to be in the description down below, along with all of my social media things, links to the other channel and the podcast and the blog and everything, all down in there. If you aren't already familiar, I do a botany book club on Mondays at 4 p.m. PST or GMT-8 over on Twitch at twitch.tv/adventurin. It's spelled the same as it is here, but we are currently reading Braiding Sweetgrass by Robin Wall Kimmerer. So that's going to be the next couple of weeks at least. So we're on part 3 as of this coming Monday. So whenever this goes up, it'll probably have already passed, so we'd be on part 4. Yeah, anyway. And without further ado, this is Ren signing off. Make sure you drink your water, wear a mask when you need to, and take a breath. Anyway, I'll see y'all later. Have a good one. Bye now, everybody. What is happening with my hair? I realize that it's like drying and stuff right now, but come on. Anyway.